We are right now in Anywhere Works, inspiring place to be, zoned in different ways that people feel can switch their mode of thinking.
Yeah, I can.
Do you feel inspired already?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
if I can design anything, or if I need somewhere to peace and quiet, I can. It's very flexible.
You know, the little things like having so much art on the walls everywhere makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference for your creativity, for your innovation.
Arts actually can have really huge impact on brainstorming sessions.
Well, and I imagine also if you're lounging on a very comfortable couch.
Yeah.
It's so much more creative.
Smile.
The ideas are just flowing and so comfortable.
Actually,
They're really good, actually.
do you think can you still stay productive in the places like that?
I think this is why you need versatility. Any space you're going to get bored of and is going to become quite stale. Having the option of multiple breakout spaces, I think that's the actual key to productivity.
I used to have a career as an HR manager, and I saw how it used to be. People really preferred to have my own desk and, sitting together, and offices used much more space. Right now I'm working on my own startup. I'm quite often in those co-working spaces or in accelerator communities. Today you're sitting in this place, tomorrow you're sitting there, you're talking to different people. I would say on the one hand it's really exciting, on the other hand it could be a bit stressful first, but it's just because you're moving out of the zone of comfort a bit, and that's what exactly happening. And I think with all of those trends like gig economy and freelance, people are moving to the term that we call digital nomads right now more and more. On the other hand, we have millennials and Generation Z for whom all of this right now, career, it's changing. People really don't want to stay at the same job. People are willing more to try different careers. Can you describe a bit some who are people who come to co-working space?
Obviously, originally it came out with the idea for freelancers and particularly people who were starting up. We've got a lot of people who, for example, are organisations who don't have a permanent office space, so they might have one employee in Edinburgh, two in Glasgow, one in the Highlands, and they all work remotely. Being able to have that employee in a co-working space means that the organisation feels comfortable that they're taking care of that employee, taking care of their well-being by having them connected to a community rather than just having them work from home. It also means that the organisation itself, if everyone wanted to come to Edinburgh, they have somewhere to meet that is professional.
The co-working space is evolving, and in the far end, I think the office will disappear. We had massive improvements in technology. Wi-Fi is everywhere, and with your either mobile phone or laptop or whatever, you can not just work anywhere in the office, but you can work anywhere in the world.
This latte and laptop culture that we have, it looks great on the one hand, because yes, you are sitting in a trendy coffee shop, but actually there are two concerns about that. First, the very, very first basic things has to be proper ergonomics. And when you are sitting in the cafe, with affected bed posture, when your laptop is not on the right level, it affects your vision, it affects your, energy level. Also, the level of distractions, even if you are with your earphones. I love that we are more and more flexible and work at home.
I do also believe that we are in a still transition period. Since the first industrial revolution, we are now having another, the last one revolution is in terms of IT and technology. So we are learning a new culture.
Traditional office is dying, is almost said, in that the way that cubicle space is very uninspiring. That's not the way that people want to work. It's not the way they ever wanted to work, but it's certainly not the way they want to work now, and technology has enabled that not to have to be the case. But the flip side of that, the extreme version of everyone being virtual, everyone being digital and only connecting remotely with your colleagues, I think that would also be too far in the other direction. I think that one of the really valuable things that offices have always brought us that we still need is the human connection. How many times have you been in a job that you really dislike but you stick around for the people? I think we can't do away with that completely, and I think if we did away with offices or a physical space where people came to work, then we would be losing the good with the bad as well. What we will see in future is just a change in the way that offices are designed.
This is an interesting idea to have office tables, which could be a boardroom. And then 5 minutes of this physical activity actually can clear your brain a lot. What is also interesting is to provide right now companies with more ideas and solutions how they can rework their workspaces on a budget. Because it is a bit of a misconception to think that to make something really good, you need lots of money. It's just a way to rework the space you have.
Absolutely.
And to know how to zone the environment properly and to make it a bit more diverse and a bit creative. Co-working space is actually quite good for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that idea of like not being afraid to experiment and do things a little bit quirky and a bit unusual. Is those the kind of little touches that give a space life and make it feel much more human, which therefore also makes people feel much more at home in the space. So they feel more comfortable and more inspired rather than just, plain four white walls and all functionality.
Yeah, this feature wall, for instance, or photographs. These kind of spaces will take over the office spaces, yes. Working as a freelance architect and interior designer, these co-working spaces are very convenient for my profession.
So you think co-working will increase your
So
creativity?
co-working, and then lots of people like me, I'm from the design sector, but in startups, entrepreneur or tech-savvy business, they also need more flexible spaces. Maybe they come in the afternoon, work in the late.
One problem with co-working spaces I can see, if you work on something innovative and let's say maybe, patentable, something that you shouldn't show to public too soon. Co-working space is still a bit fragile environment for a new idea. Part
of me, as someone who loves co-working, would love the world to be run by co-working spaces. I do think it's not practicable. I mean, if from the simple fact, if you think about certain sectors, as you said, that need privacy, and particularly like large organisations like government and public sector, I think that what increasingly will happen, and actually is already happening, is a blend of the two. So if you've got, if you take the model that WeWork have, which is, internationally one of the biggest co-working franchises, what they do is they take on a whole building and they will have generally like the hot desking, traditional co-working for people who are freelancers and know they need to buy space by the hour, or maybe you're individual workers. On the bottom floor, that's where you'll have your breakout spaces and, this real co-working feel. And then the rest of the floors will actually be hired out on an organisational basis. So it might be a full floor, it might be half a floor, but you have your organisation in that space. So there might be 50 or 100 of you still working in your own office. But actually when you go down and get a coffee, you've got access to another 100, 200 people who work in industries. You might not even be in the same industry, and you're getting the benefits of the co-working space. So
if there will be more co-working, and if co-working will take over, then who will rent buildings, who will own buildings?
Ownership can be switched to shared property ownership. Or
like sharing taxis.
Actually, like sharing taxis or sharing, I can't afford or buy this kind of whole building. But I may willing to buy a room or a cubicle.
A co-working space built around a collaborative community that can really bring a lot to an area, can really revitalise spaces. So property owners are actually seeing the value in the co-working space themselves and are increasingly happy to enter into sort of more like a joint venture. Another really important thing to think about that I found in space design, it's called the democracy of light. So where is your light coming from? How much is there? But also importantly, who gets access to that? If you're designing a co-working space and you give all the front window-facing prime space to your staff, they're going to have a great time, but you're probably not going to get quite so many members if you've shoved them all down the back. So, but at the same time, you want to spread the light to make it. That's what humans kind of. That's what we go towards. That's what we're drawn to. So, putting communal breakout spaces in the most well-lit areas rather than private offices.
I think what is interesting also is to blend maybe different cultural ideas. Scandinavians are definitely, of course, on top of the list for their, this concept of happiness. Actually, Danish people, the only one nation that has happiness in the workplace as a one word. And I like the point is also, you made probably some about personalization of the working places. So something like,
Absolutely.
To produce this kind of light is you don't need like lots of money, but to make it really more personal, and you can put a lot of letters, letters from your clients.
Exactly, and even in shared spaces, even little things like putting signage everywhere, but in a very friendly, warm tone. it serves the dual purpose of letting people know how to use the space and the facilities correctly, but we've had it said that it feels like the space is talking to them.
The way of using libraries, and not to make them closed actually, but to more like open, is a very strong idea. Because it's again about tricking our mind and to put the mind into the atmosphere of study. Think about it, where do we have the memory of be productive and study? From the universities, and universities were surrounded by the libraries. So to put some inspirational books, in the office space, and to make them accessible for people, that is a smart idea.
But also to arrange them in a way that they are a design feature.
Yes, exactly.
Like obviously that's incredibly aesthetically pleasing and brings a lot to the room.
Going back to the idea of using spaces smartly, so to have a space where you can feel quiet, cozy, and actually safe. Not only you can use it as a room to have your private conversation, but also it's a perfect space for those people who are more introverted. So it's a bit of like a corner to hide and reflect a bit on your thoughts and, feeling that you still have space.
And again, this was probably a storage cupboard in this
I-
building's
that-
past
that
life.
is,
So
yes.
what a fantastic way to revitalise a space that is quite small but perfectly suited.
A closet became a perfect, really reflective room actually. All of these trends, scary trends, such as robots come to take over our jobs. AI is getting smarter and smarter every day. What do you feel about that? About the scenario, for example, that we will all lose our jobs and will be not even needed?
Yes, certain professions, work, jobs will disappear. Even some of them already starting to disappear.
I would agree. We've got some members in our co-working space who are working on AI, and one in particular is actually works on building robots. So it's really interesting to talk to him about this. No matter how efficient the AI becomes, you can't replicate human innovation. And this potential fear of robots taking our jobs, we're actually the ones building the robots, we're the ones building all the AI and doing all the programming and coding. AI and robots are human created, which means that they can be human controlled as well. So
It's an interesting time we're living in. The faster, actually, the pace of change, the slower our brain can actually adapt to that. So the jobs which are done right now by financial advisors or analysts who can work with big data sets actually is not as difficult to do for robots, to estimate risks as well.
if you try and program robots to make black and white coded decisions about things that fall within the remit of human life and all of its nuances and complexities, it's just not going to work, or it's just going to, a good example is in the judicial system. It's been found that actually judges are more likely to be lenient in their sentencing and decision making after they've had lunch than they are before they've had lunch. So on paper you might say, well, if we had a robot doing that work, then we could just program them in and it will be consistent no matter what the time of the day, because robots don't get hungry. But at the same time, the idea of any sort of artificial intelligence making judicial decisions is terrifying and ridiculous, because there are just so many nuances there.
You mentioned a very good concept of empathy, and I do agree empathy is something that I don't think robots will ever learn. On the other hand, actually people find it even easier sometimes talk to robots and to reason with them, because robots don't judge them.
My main concern or big fear is surveillance or Big Brother. So we have the cameras, CCTVs everywhere, and also we had in our laptop when we connect, and it's IP and everything is recorded. But at the same time, if I'm not recorded, or how my security will be maintained.
I agree. It's a lot about boundaries,
with
isn't
boundaries,
it? Because I don't think we even have a chance to actually set them.
I worry about the exploitation of technology that has been used to innovate and improve human lives, so that, if we're more efficient, then the argument is that we'll all have more time to do the things that we enjoy. I fear that actually if we're more efficient, then we'll just be expected to do more work in the same amount of time, because look at all these efficiencies we've made, so you should be able to do things much faster. So we will just keep raising the bar and really just exploit, because if people can work harder, then they can make more money.
future of work and workplace looks to me as a massive opportunity at the moment. I think we will have less brain drain in the future just because people can work from anywhere.
I'm really excited by what we are already seeing in the flexibility that these new technologies can offer people and offer everyone to be able to better adapt to work to the needs that they want. So there's not such a strict one-size-fits-all for how to work, where to work, when to work. That's with a mix of technologies, co-working spaces, flexible working hours.
I'm excited about the technology, and I do believe that all these changes, improvements will improve our lives, improve our culture, improve human beings.